welcome to the CrackOn podcast, hosted by me, John Saunders. Crack on! Hey guys, welcome to another CrackOn podcast edition. So, hosted by myself, John Saunders, and it gives me absolute pleasure this episode to introduce a great guy, a rugby legend, and someone who's been through adversity and come out the other end, you know, but I've played rugby against him, and he's one heck of a player. I went through a situation where, when I was younger, we had the absolute living daylights kicked out of us by this player and his colleagues. So Alix Popham, great guy. Can't wait to share this one. All about, you know, the early signs of dementia. He's going through all that as we speak. Just an absolute true gentleman. So anyway, without further ado, enjoy. Alix Popham. Morning, Alex. How you doing, mate?
Morning, buddy. Yeah, all good. The sun's shining. I'm going to go for a little run later. So yeah, all good. Nice,
mate. Nice. Right, let's get straight into it then, bud. Right, as I ask everyone, what does CrackOn mean to you?
Well, CrackOn means to me that you've got to feel lucky with what you've got, and there's lots of other people in a lot worse situation, and it's just something that you've just got to get on with whatever hand you've been dealt in a positive way. I'm always a guy who's half full. And that's the way that I look at everything, really. Take it on and move on, really.
I love that. I remember meeting you, and you were trying to talk me into doing that the cycle across America.
Yeah.
And I was so tempted to do it, mate. But one thing you said to me, look, I'm just going to get on with it, and you did say the word CrackOn. I remember.
Yeah.
That's the sort of guy you are, isn't it?
So I'm the reason you named this podcast CrackOn.
Oh, there we go. The secret's out. The secret's out. Good, mate. Right, next one. So, look, you've done loads of things in your life. Have you ever had anyone you've sort of seen as an idol or a mentor, or someone that's really stood out in your life so far?
I wouldn't say. Do you know what I mean? Growing up, that you have people who come into your life, and then from my mini coach Gary Blanks, you may remember him from Newport High School Old Boys.
When you smash us, that's all.
Yeah, he was. You know what I mean? I got introduced to Gary at the age of 4, and then he was my coach until I was 17. And he was just a special man. The way he coached, the way he managed players, he knew how to get the best out of players. He was a decent boxer himself,
right.
And just as a figure growing up that you just wanted to impress and run through brick walls for, he was a great guy. But going on from there, there's, do you know what I mean? There's most probably little bits from different people who you just take inspiration from, really. And there's not one set person, but I respect anybody who puts themselves out there, who challenges themselves and takes themselves out of their comfort zone. I read a lot of. I'm starting again to try and get back into it, but people's autobiographies and things like that. People who've really challenged themselves. I got a friend now who Damien Brown. I played with him in Breve. He was an ex-Connaught Northampton second row. He's rowed across the Atlantic solo, and he's on Everest as we speak.
Is he?
Doing Everest, but I was a bit worried. He went offline for a couple of weeks, and I watched the Sherpa documentary on Netflix, which I most probably shouldn't have done whilst he was on there. And then he went missing, but he's come back online now. He caught COVID on Everest. So I had to go into isolation for 10 days, and now he's back on there and building back up to summit, hopefully.
Mate, I mean, those sort of, because you're one of those, right? However much you say in your mates and this, you mate, you've done a lot, and now we're talking about you going back into sort of doing Ironman and things like that. There's loads of you doing like that, but that's a total mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's about, again, challenging yourselves. I've done the rider across America 3 times and thoroughly enjoyed that. But for me, it's not just, I know the Ironman's a solo event, but the training you can do with your mates, and that's for me what I enjoy. It's a goal at the end, as was the ride across America, but you're doing it with other people. You're having fun, you're pushing yourself or pushing each other along the way. And that's one thing that I really miss from rugby, is being in that team environment with a goal at the end, which was whatever team you played for, winning the cup or winning the league. And small steps to get there, and week by week. And that's what I'm doing now with my training with the Ironman. Before I decided to do it, I wasn't a strong swimmer. I could swim, so 100 meters easily, but being able to swim 2.4 miles, I'm building up to, and getting that in the bank is not easy.
So how do you, it's interesting because this is all about, for me, it's about people that got that crack on mindset and that. So how do you approach that? So obviously for me, I've been really lucky in my time. I've just been a swimmer since young. But actually, how do you approach that sort of? Because for me, there's lots of people out there that sit there and say, "Well, I could do the Ironman, but I just can't swim." So how have you approached that?
That it's, don't look at the end goal as 2.4 miles. Do what, this is again through my triathlon coach. Is do build up events to it. So I've booked onto 4 events this year, starting with a super sprint, then a sprint, then a Olympic distance, and then hopefully a half Ironman in September, which will give me a base for hopefully completing it the following September. So it's just small steps, small goals, and not think too far ahead. I haven't done a triathlon yet, so this if we have this interview after doing my first one, I could be like tapping out. But
smash it. So talk us back. We know each other back from, so talking about goals and things. So we know each other. I remember those famous days when I used to play for Newport High School All Boys, and the one day you put 110 points on us is the biggest defeat I've ever had. And Gareth Chapman, a joint friend of ours, was very much so told me to play cricket with him.
I saw Chappie in I was going up the Celtic to do some swimming the other day, and his head popped up because he's just had his ankle fused. So all he could do is swimming at the moment. So I saw Chaps the other day. Great guy.
Yeah, great guy, mate. And you had a great look. You had a great bunch around you. I mean, we deserved it. Yeah. We were. It was my heaviest defeat, and hopefully it stays that way. But going back to Basildon School and working your way through. So talk us through the journey. So obviously, how did the 33 caps for Wales come from that start in Basildon? Thinking about the mindset and the goal setting.
Well, it was most probably from the age of 4 when I started playing. So my mum was in hospital. I had my little brother Mark. Right. In the bed next to us was a lady called Julie Blanks, whose husband is Gary Blanks. My dad got talking to him, and the following week, myself and my older brother Jamie was at Newport High School Old Boys training. Brilliant. So I started at 4. We had a very good team. I think from the age of 4 till 17, I lost 3 games, 4 games maximum in that team. So we had a very, very good team. And for me, it was just all about getting in the representative teams, pushing myself. I realized I was good at rugby from a young age, and it was my passion. And then when the school that I went to, Pentraporth, then Basildon, a lot of emphasis was on sport, and for me, rugby took over, and that was most probably a mistake that I made, that I didn't concentrate on other sports. Right. It was just rugby, and didn't put much time or effort into anything else really. And I most probably should have, and this is what I advise any parents or kids, how to help them with rugby, because lots of other sports help skills that you need for rugby. So when I was playing, as time went on, the number 8 role became like a fullback, where you had to hang back, which I hated. One, because I was crap under the high ball, and didn't have that skill set. But if I had done cricket and concentrated on that in school, I would have been a lot better. So yeah, with Basleg, it was all about pushing and getting in the first team, and I think I got there a couple of years young, so I was playing for the sixth form, even though I didn't go to sixth form in Basleg. It was all about going to big tournaments, Roslyn Park, Sevens tournaments, and just doing well. And it was, and I don't think this happens much at with school. It was celebrated when you did well, so you got on stage, and I think that's a real and I know with kids nowadays, if any kids do well, they're embarrassed about getting in front of their peers, of celebrating their successes. And that was one thing in Basleg and Pentraporth that they encouraged, which then I think then was just part of your foundations and what you wanted to do and do well all the time.
On that note, because it's interesting, because all the kids, we've got kids, we've all got kids between us, and that thing where people get medals for just participating. I mean, what you're saying there
kills me.
Because that must have spurred you on to do more, to want to do more, to celebrate it.
Because if you get patted on the back for being average and just taking part, yes, it's good to take part, and that everybody's not world beaters in lots of different areas, but I think winning, and in rugby, in football, in any sport, in academics, that has got to be celebrated, and people have got to be put on a pedestal, because people have different strengths in all areas of life, but you do need to celebrate the people who do well in those different areas.
I agree, because the other part is that you would have lost more than you won. Or you would have, maybe in your career is different than mine, because I lost that more than I won.
Well, but I think growing up, I didn't lose a lot playing, but then when I got into Newport seniors, my first at the time Newport seniors weren't very good. And myself and Matthew J. Watkins got called up from Newport Youth. And I played 31 games was involved in 31 games for the seniors that year. We lost 30. So we should have been relegated. It was only Aberavon didn't have the correct facilities to come up that we stayed up. So that was a hell of an apprenticeship, being my first senior game on a scrum that was going backwards as a number 8. But it most probably put me in good stead, and that fighting dog in me to carry on even when times were hard.
I was going to say, because that season, I bet, would have played a massive part. You never won a season like that again, so that would have spurred you on to something else.
Definitely not. I was, like I said, my first season, I was battered and bruised every week playing for Newport, but then I also had all my representative training and games on top of that. So it was a 7 and tours at the end of season. So rugby was a 7-day week. There was no rest days, and lots of rugby played.
So from Newport then, where did your career take you up? It took you all around, mate, didn't it? Leeds and Ashley, Breed.
So I had 4 years at Newport seniors. Then I went to Leeds for 4 years. Won the Power Gen Cup played with some great players there, and then
what was it like over the border? Was compared to Newport? Was it a big step up?
It was more pressure, I think, because there was relegation, and every game was a massive game, even if you were safe, because the team you were playing were either fighting for relegation to avoid relegation, or wanted to be in the top 4 to get to the playoffs. So every week was a massive game. And I also felt that when I went to France, because of the relegation battles as well. But then playing in Wales with Newport and the Scarlets, they didn't have that. I think the rugby was more flowing because of that. But the excitement for the fans and ultimately knowing it was a big game because they had relegation, is a big thing for me that I think it's a positive in my eyes. So went to Scarlets for 3 years and then out in France in Brive for 3 years as well.
Yeah, but the bit for the Brive and the Leeds bit, I bet they were more about winning, and Gearan was winning.
Yeah, it was. Some of it wasn't pretty rugby, or it was all about win at all costs.
What was it like in Brive? Because obviously there's the famous Brive Ponty match that we all know as well supporters, but that's what rugby is, rugby, mate, huh?
Yeah, it was. Do you know what I mean? A population of Brive was about 40,000, and we would get 18,000 of those at the game. So you definitely knew around the town if you'd lost or won. And it was a great experience. Very much they were set in their ways, and it was difficult at the first 6 months to acclimatize to their way, because coming from Wales, where it was all about speed, endurance, short, sharp, explosive power. Right. I went over about 110 kgs, was in good condition, and then over there they had this old school. They had a fitness coach who come from Northampton who was exactly the same mindset as what I had with Wales and the Scarlets and Leeds, and then alongside him they had a guy who'd been there 20 years and got Brive to the win Europe, but he was an ex-marathon runner, so we would have ridiculously long sessions, a lot of contact over there, more or less every day. But then at the end of a 2-hour session, you go for an hour cool down jog. So I went from 110, 112 kgs to most probably 102.
Wow.
I couldn't keep any weight on, but also it was ridiculously physical over there. And it was a tough league. You don't play things to if they're easy. So
I was going to say, what was the thought process going from the Scarlets over to Brive? I know obviously there's a financial part of it, not really necessarily. What about the mindset side of it? What made you want to go over?
I just wanted to experience something else. There was lots. I think Steve Jones had gone over there at the time. Gareth Thomas had gone over, and just challenging myself against some world-class players from all around the world. And the back row in Brive, we had a brilliant back row in France. They have a newspaper called L'Equipe, which is a sporting newspaper that come out and there was a section, its own paper for rugby on a Friday that had all the talk for the weekend games, and then on the Monday would debrief the games, and they always had a team of the week from all the teams, who was the best 15 who played at that weekend. And for the 3 years I was there, the Brive back row, people hated playing against us. The majority of the time, us three were in that team on a Monday morning. So there was myself, Anthony Claessens, who's he's had about 10 caps for France, but his dad was captain of South Africa, and Gerhard Vossloh was open side. So we had a really decent back row, and like to get in the faces of opposition.
Yeah, but that's how you play rugby as well, mate, wasn't it? I mean,
definitely. I was a pain in the ass. I was physical, but that wasn't just the games on a Saturday. That was my mentality through the week, and I was always taught that.
But how do you keep that? How do you get the team? Because obviously you would have been dealt with teams and people within that team you didn't get on with, and people would have found that quite hard, I would have thought. How did you push yourself when people sort of weren't pushing themselves?
You just have to, do you know what I mean? And I was made captain over in France. It wasn't because I struggled with speaking French confidently and in the right structure, but they made me captain because the type of player I was always 100%, and it was more of a follow me type. That I'm doing it. I'm putting myself about in training and in games. Let's get on the same page with me. And the majority of the time, they did. The one thing that really frustrated me and was the mindset over in France was home games. You could tell everybody was ready for selection. They'd be training all week and wanted to play in that home game. And the French boys especially. But an away game, if you had an away game on a Saturday, there'd be injuries that would happen that would come from nowhere. And the mentality of with playing away from home, they weren't that bothered. And that was just the French way. And that killed me and killed the other foreigners, because you wanted to win away from home as much as winning at home, in my eyes. But the French, it's getting better, but they didn't have that whilst I was there.
No. So talk the listeners through the pinnacle. And I'm saying pinnacle in my opinion. What I can see of it, playing for Wales in your country is always got to be up there. Was that always the goal?
And these they're not. I and this is a problem with my condition of early onset dementia and probable CTE. My memories of actually my playing career are from photos, video clips, jerseys on the wall. Actual memories are hard to pull on. And games where you speak to some boys, they know the weather, the score, who scored what when. I've got no recollection of being in stadiums in some massive games, but I know what I achieved during my career and who I played for and for what time. But I got on the bench for Wales as a 19-year-old against Scotland. I can't remember the year it was, but I didn't get capped. I didn't get on, and it wasn't for another 3 or 4 years, 3 years, I think it was, that I got my cap. So in my head, I was like, I've missed my chance. It's never going to happen. And then I went to Leeds and was playing well and got called up to Wales for the 2003 tour to Australia and New Zealand before the World Cup, and went on that and got capped against Australia, and it was just like brilliant. And then there was a World Cup, so there was a lot of training building up to the World Cup, and there was World Cup warm-up games and then got selected to go on to an amazing World Cup in Australia, and then play for Wales for another 5 years, summer tours. It was a continuous season. You didn't really have a lot of time off if you were touring as well in the summer. You'd come back and maybe have a week off, and then you were back into your training. So there was no real rest for your mind or your body. But my last game for Wales was, and they showed it again in lockdown, was 2008 game against England at Twickenham. So it was the first time Wales won there for 22 years. But I watched it in lockdown this time last year, and watched it with Mel and the three girls, and it was as if I was watching the game for the first time. I've got no recollection. I know we won. I've got the jersey downstairs. I got the medal, and but actually being in that stadium, playing in that game was it was quite strange watching it.
Yeah, I bet it was, man. I bet it was. And I think the memory bit. Let's go into the head for change then. So, obviously the dementia bit that's in the public domain. How's all that going for you, mate?
Yeah, it's unfortunately because when I started being tested, there was like 15 players going through the testing as well. Now there's over 300 come forward who are struggling, and I believe it's only the tip of the iceberg. But they're getting tested. Since my diagnosis, things have become easier with coping mechanisms. Now I know why different things were happening. So after the diagnosis, Mel and I, it took a good week for it to sink in. But we started then looking about how do we tell Holly and Isabel, my 2 elder daughters, that their dad's got early onset dementia? And there was nothing, everything online was for 60, 65-year-olds, and how do you tell grandkids? So we realized very quickly there was nothing there for someone in their early 40s and their family, and how they cope. And that's where the idea of setting up a foundation to be able to support players and their partners and the kids going forward. So we had our first fundraise. We launched the 15th of January. We had our first fundraising event in lockdown, the Rugby Ride Challenge, which was a 24-hour challenge on a static bike, which was savage. And we raised.
Right, of all challenges, right, I've done quite a few challenges. That one and Ryan Jones's one when he ran through the night, right? They are savage. They're savage.
My sores had sores. Like when I finished, when I finished it, during it, I was getting on with it and just digging in and cracking on and eating loads. And when I finished, I had a shower and I went into shock. I couldn't stop shaking.
Wow.
And this is not a pretty picture, what I'm going to say now. Mel had to put baby rash nappy cream on my bits and bum, and I had some food and just fell asleep. But it was like I'd been on the biggest stag do ever.
That's what I'm saying. You cycled around America, but I bet that was harder.
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was. It was definitely the way that I felt. And sores are just wounds, aren't they? They're like cuts. So every movement was just causing friction and more sores coming. So yeah.
But I think coming back to the podcast, so the CrackOn bit, what you've done with that is because there's other players now getting involved in it, and for me, you've seen it and just got on with it, mate. And I think that
there's boys who were in real, like I've spoken to most probably over 100 players now, but there's 6 or 7 that I've spoke who tried committing suicide in a dark place, just got no motivation. Their body's in bits, but now they've been diagnosed. They've got brain damage as well from playing rugby. But knowing what has worked for me, and that's being in a routine, going back to what you did when you were playing rugby, eating well, exercising. Like some of the boys, I've got them cycling, got them out walking, got them off the sofa. One of the boys has lost bloody 20 Ks in weight. They've been diagnosed, but they're feeling a lot better in themselves. So it's all these little things that hopefully, or I know that they are definitely helping me, but are helping a lot of others. And that's what now Head for Change is all about.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think that's what needs commending, is the fact that you've been diagnosed with something that is life changing, but actually you've not just thought of yourself, you thought of others as well. I think that is a massive step, mate. I think it's awesome.
And thank you. It's again, I think it's I'm definitely a team player, and you want to help yourself, but you can help other people in the process, which I'm not doing it for this to get the pat on the back from, but if I know I'm helping others, or we're helping others, it's not just me in the foundation. There's Mal, who's putting in a hell of a lot of hours as a trustee with it as well, and talking to the other wives, other partners. It's making a difference, which is massively important.
Yeah, it's massive, mate. Well, I'm gonna shift a little bit off that, mate. I wish you all the best with that. Just on a quick one, if someone wanted to reach out, listening to this, wants to reach out about the charity side of it, how do they reach out to you?
You can go on to the website, which is www.headforchange.org.uk. Sign up to the newsletter. We've got community heroes where people put on their own fundraising events and raise money for the foundation. We had somebody contact us before the Rugby Ride Challenge and said, look, his name was Hugh. There was a group of friends, about 15 of them, all in a private school just on the Welsh borders.
Yeah.
And their friend Hugh unfortunately passed away. It'd be 10 years in December.
Wow.
And to commemorate his death, they wanted to do a fundraising year in the memory of Hugh.
Yeah.
And Hugh's favourite player was me. And
Oh,
whenever Hugh was in school and he was playing rugby or running around the playground, he would say, "Release the Popham, release the Popham." And they've come on board and they're doing a fundraising year. They raised over £4,000 on the Rugby Ride Challenge. They're organising a touch tournament in the school. They're doing another cycle challenge. They're walking up Penavan and doing some amazing, but it's all in the name of Hugh. And things like that. This is where rugby is so amazing. The rugby family coming together to keep Hugh's name in their lives. And I know his mum and dad are really proud of what the friends are doing. And this is the special thing. And people like that coming forward to help the charity and getting involved.
Yeah, mate, that's just a lovely story and a lovely, like I said, that is what it's all about, I bet.
Yeah. It's so we're going to get T-shirts made up for the challenge. #release the Popham,
Nice.
which
I love that.
which is pretty cool.
Look, there's not many people that have gone. I wanted to take it into a bit of the business world. So there's not many players that have gone. I say naturally because there is a natural part of it. You're going to tell me otherwise because I know it wasn't natural necessarily to start with. But when your rugby career finished, obviously, what was it like going straight into the business world? Because you made a great, you're on that journey within the business world, aren't you? How has that been for you?
Yeah. Well, I was always not lucky, but I used the opportunity whilst I was playing to do other things where, and I used it as a bit of a release whilst I was playing to have my focus on something else and not just rugby and that tunnel vision. So
what
I did property. Pardon?
What was that at the time? What was the other?
So I did property developing whilst I was playing. So lots of houses. Yeah. I set up an agency looking after players whilst I was playing with a PR company and a law firm in Cardiff. So I was always quite entrepreneurial whilst I was playing and before when I was younger. Yeah. But then when I was playing, I also networked with the people involved in rugby. So the sponsors and people who were in the boxes after the game. So always took an interest in chatting to them, which a lot of boys don't. Yeah. And then when I finished, I carried on the property developing. But if I'm honest, it was earning good money, but I miss being part of something, part of a team. Yeah. And I wasn't a property developer who got their hands dirty. I was crap at DIY and all that, but would buy a house in auction and then get a team of builders to go in and rip it apart and then just sell it. So I was going to the house, say, do this, and then going home and just being on my own. So yeah. I just missed being part of something. So I then started working for an event and content company that did a lot of big dinners and galas and things like that, and that was really enjoyable. But it was a lot of
content, was it?
Yeah, fresh business thinking.
Fresh business.
And then amplified business content, and it was great for a few years, but there was a lot of with a young family, a lot of late nights and things like that. So was trying to think of something that I could get my teeth into. And this is where the idea of Hub 15 came about. It was at a dinner actually that Amplified Business Content put on, the Great British Entrepreneur Awards, and met a guy called Tim Bogue, who the sponsor of the awards was NatWest, and he worked for them. Yeah. And we sat on the table, and he was also on the board with London Welsh. And London Welsh at the time went into administration, moved back to Old Deer Park, and they were desperate for cash. Yeah. And he said, "Look, will you put some dinners on?" And we said, "Well, we could put some dinners on, but the first one to sell out, Second one will be hard work, and you won't get hardly anybody there for the third. So it's not going to be rolling revenue that you need. And from there, we went down to the ground, and we just said, look, this stadium or this ground is in a great location, lots of chimney pots, great views over the cricket and rugby pitch. People could work from here. This could be a co-working space.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's where the idea started from. And then I said to myself, well, there's thousands of venues around the UK, around the world, that are just sat empty. And that's where that journey started. And we're in.
I was going to say, where's it taking you now then? Because that as an idea, the because obviously with COVID, you know, those co-working spaces, I would have thought from a timing point of view, you're now at that time, huh?
Well, we're just treading water at the moment. We're ready to explode with the easing of lockdown and everything like that. So the stadiums we are live in, not all the doors are open because of COVID at the moment. We're in Swaylick, Sophia Gardens, Ascot Racecourse, and Twickenham.
Brilliant.
So they're ready to actually. Ascot doors are back open and members are back in there. And we are in talks with most probably 30 other venues to be able to offer those to people. But yeah, in a strange way, COVID and showing individuals or even large corporate companies, people can work from home and don't need to be in a big fancy office 24/7. But Hub 15 is in between, where corporates could allow their staff to work from home, but 1 or 2 days a week to get out of the house, work from an inspirational space, which our venues are. It's a desk with a view. There's a community feel to the people who work from there. And it's just getting momentum now, and fingers crossed explodes over the next few months and years.
If there's one thing you are very, very good at, again, there's like a bit of a pat bagging job, but one thing you'll always do is pick the phone up. You will always phone and contact me. That is a massive skill that I know you have.
Yeah, it's not being, because what's the worst thing can happen is somebody says no.
Yeah.
And if they say no, then you follow up with, well, who can help me?
Yeah. So talk me through the biggest skills. Talk me through the skills, or the listeners, the skills you gathered through rugby and the family in rugby over to the business world. What are the biggest skills you've sort of transferred over?
Communication, honesty, talking, and this is where I've had to pull back a little bit, because talking your mind if there is a mistake, because in rugby you have a shocker on a Saturday, you know about it on the Monday, and it's forgotten about by the Monday afternoon because you've got to go ready for the following week. And I think the business world could adopt more of that, maybe without the effing and jeffing, but with direct talk, because you're not having to go really at an individual and bully. It's not bullying, it's do this, and then the following day or the following event or the following project will be better because they've learned from that mistake. And you can't sit on something for weeks and weeks on end with people doing the same mistakes, because you're not getting as far as quickly if you have that direct, honest conversation and nip it in the butt and move on from it and crack on.
Yeah, no, mate, I love that, because that also goes back to that winning mentality, isn't it? If businesses was more about the winning potentially, they'd have to reassess, and the ones that are the best at it are the ones that assess and sort of self-reflect on a weekly, daily basis.
Yeah, definitely. And what could have been done better, and just stop tiptoeing around people and just say it as it is. And if they take it to heart then and sulk, and you would have this in some teams, they're not right for the team. They're not right for your organization. And like I said, I'm not bullying. I bloody hate. And it's not about that, but it's about getting what needs to be said across, and then moving on and forgetting about it. And then if they make the same mistakes over and over again, it's not meant to be.
Yeah, totally, mate. It's fascinating. We've come to the end. I've got 3 more questions for you to end it, but it's been a fantastic journey, right? I've got to be honest. We get on. I played you when I was younger. I knew you were something special then, mate, because you trampled all over me a couple of times. But I got 3 more questions, right? So, in Alix's world, 3 non-negotiables.
In this order: first, family.
Yeah.
Then food.
Yeah.
Then exercise.
I like that. That's a good 3 non-negotiables there, bud. So
Yeah.
talk me about the biggest life lesson you've had so far.
There's 2. One, when I was 16 and I didn't get into Welsh schools under 16s.
Right.
Got to the final trial and then had a letter saying that I didn't make the cut. A lot of boys at that time in the same position just fell away.
Yeah.
But my head was all right. 18s, and I did, and was obsessed to do everything that I could to get capped at 18. And that year, then at 18, I got capped by Welsh schools under 18s, Welsh youth under 18s, Welsh youth, FIRA. I played for like 4 or 5 Welsh teams and had 5 caps, 5 separate different teams within 12 months. It was the first time that it was ever done and couldn't be repeated because that's not possible now. They've only got 1 team at that age group that somebody could play for. So yeah, that was my big part of my career that pushed me on to not give up. And
so that's interesting. So that was a failure that turned now into the biggest positive.
Yeah, definitely. But people get failures all the time. It's how you deal with them, and not think of it as a failure. Because I went and spoke to the people, and obviously at that age group, people develop at different times. You've got 16-year-olds who are like 22-year-olds and develop and mature and go through puberty and a lot older than others and a lot more developed. So yeah, for me, it was just about pushing, and I spoke to the coaches about what I could do or what was missing, and just made sure I worked on them to get into the 18s, and made sure they couldn't not select me under 18s. And then most probably more recently with the diagnosis and everything like that is what do we do now as a family, and what is our legacy gonna be? And as I said at the beginning, we are I am a person, and we are a family half full, and it was about making changes and helping me and my family, but lots of the other boys and their families as well. And that's what we're looking to do with everything regarding Head for Change and progressive rugby.
Yeah, awesome. And one last question, mate, because that's just great in itself. So let's say you go back and have a chat with that 16-year-old Alix Popham. What would your advice be to him?
Buy more properties in London before it boomed there. If you think something's a good idea and there's a pattern with something, go for it. And not wish you did. Don't have any regrets. And that's not being stupid with them and frivolous with money or your time or anything like that. But if it feels right, give it a go.
Yeah.
Because
with regards to where you are now with Head for Change, would you change anything in your rugby career?
No. I just wish the powers to be put things in place, what was known from other sports, NFL, boxing, in place to make it safer. And it wasn't like the Wild West when we were playing and training and we were looked after more. But I had a great career, and I love rugby, and there's so many amazing things that come out of rugby: contacts, friendships, traveling, food, that I've done and achieved. And that's why we want rugby to carry on. It's a great sport, and that's why the changes we're proposing will make it 85% safer.
Yeah.
So
and to be honest, like I said, knowing you like I do, it will be a safer place because of the impact you're having. So whatever happens, mate, I wish you all the best in Hub 50, your family, every Ironman that I'd love to be training with you on, because I'm doing the same, mate. So everything.
You're quicker than me, mate.
No, I'm definitely, mate. It's not about the speed. It's about the endurance. You know. No, but I wish you all the luck, mate. And I've got to be honest, thank you ever so much for taking the time out to come on the podcast. And
no worries at all.
Crack on, guy, and just crack on, big man.
Perfect. Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me. Day. Cheers.
And there we have it. Wow. That's all I can really say. I felt Alix is he is a breath of fresh air. One thing he does is persistent, right? So one thing that Alix does and does extremely well is he does not stop, does not give up. You know, he talks about when he was younger and he just wasn't good enough. Didn't get picked for that under 16 side, went away, dusted himself off, understood what he needed to do to get to where he needed to get to. But then after rugby, you know, everything that's happened after rugby, remodeled himself as a businessman, got on with it. Like I said to you, is really on it, right? If he's got some chomps at the bit, he doesn't let things go. But then now to have those challenges in his life and to have to, you know, he struggled through that, you know, and he was talking through the struggles and the pains that he's had to go through over the last few months and before. And I just, for me, just really hit me hard how much it's actually affected him. And I wish him all the best. And all those lessons that he spoke about, you know, just like invaluable. You know, reach out to him if you ever want to. And I just thought a total crack on attitude, personality, top guy. And I'm really chuffed I can call him a friend, as well as just an absolute top guy. So anyway, Alix Popham, guys, thank you ever so much for listening. On to the next one, next episode. Really excited to bring it to you. And like I said, tune in. Have a great night. Crack on. Crack on.